Hello everybody, welcome to IST 110. I'm of course Professor S and I will be guiding you through this magical journey of learning. Right? Alright, anyways, let's do this thing. So, today is the first lecture and I'm going to share with you everything that we talked about in class, and this is the outline of it. So I'll introduce myself, the purpose of the course, go over the structure of the course, mention the policies, and then I'll lecture a little bit about a brief history of computer history. History of computers. There we go. Or computing is what the slide says. Anyways, and then I'll finish off the this video with a list of the things that are due. Okay? So anyways, first of all, about me. Penn State alum. Massive nerd. I like to eat, and that's really mostly what it is. I really like to eat a lot. I have a passion for a lot of food. Anyways, purpose of this course is to learn about information systems and technologies, and then to kind of also explore them with a group. So one of the benefits to this remote learning is that we're able to work together and use some of these technologies to build the skills of working together in groups, which will be valuable for a long time, because you'll be working maybe not necessarily remotely for your career, but there will be times when you have to work in places where not everybody is in the same room, and this will help build those skills. All right, anyways, let's talk about the structure of the class. So first of all, the computing requirements. You don't really need a lot to compute in this class. You need to be able to run Microsoft Office, which means Word, PowerPoint, probably Excel. So that's probably the most intense computing requirement. Zoom, maybe the next one. I'm not sure really how much we're using Box. That's just something that you might want to look at with your Penn State account. But YouTube is where this video is. That's where the recordings will be in this channel. And Zybooks is the book that we will be using. To find the book, you go to this address here. You do PSU IST 110 Sylvester Spring 2021. And you're off. Now, the way that Zybooks works is that you have two different types of activities. Okay? Participation and challenge activities. And each one of them, when you get in there, will have a box. And what this box looks like is this. This is in the top right corner. And when you finish an activity, whether it's a participation or a challenge activity, it fills in. So the participation, here's an example of a participation activity, and this one is finished because notice it has that checkbox right there. Likewise with the challenge, it's right here. So the boxes, they're both checked. Challenge will be blue, participation will be orange. Those, as far as the grade concerned, it doesn't matter. Just make sure you're completing both of them to get full credit. Okay? Now, when I assign you a reading, I expect you to do all those. In order to get the grades, you have to make sure you do all those activities before that due date of that section. And so that will make up your Zybooks work. The exit slip, that makes 0%. Peer evaluations, that makes 5%. So the thing is, it's like we have a big group project that we will be doing. Notice that it is makes up 20% of your grade, and it's not like the final product is 20%. There's also deliverables that are in there too. But after each deliverable, there will be peer evaluations, and this grade will be based upon how you rate yourself and how the peers in your group will rate you. The Zybooks is 15%. The discussion and classwork is 20%. I already mentioned the group project, and quizzes is 40%. There's no final this year, or this semester, just a bunch of quizzes. Now, I mentioned I mentioned the group project and the peer evaluations. We'll get into more of that later when it comes more relevant. I want to introduce you to a lot of the stuff that's going to happen in this semester, but I don't want to overwhelm you with all the details. This is the beginning of the week. This is going to be, everybody's giving you their policies and stuff like that. I'm trying not to overwhelm you. I'm just giving you an introduction. Oh, and then the quizzes are taken on the designated days. one of the quizzes is dropped. Okay, we'll get into more details about the quizzes, but for the moment, Canvas is going to be your one-stop shop for finding out anything, right? There's two ways that you could get to Canvas. I mean, personally, I do psu.instructure.com. I'm not sure how you do it. I'm sure you do it some way, because that's how else are you able to... that's the only way that you would be able to watch this recording, I would imagine. Anyways, make sure you read the syllabus, find office hour information, all that information that will be there. The due dates for assignments, find discussions and classwork, and when you're submitting things, it's going to be most often a PDF. And that's also where you do the exit slips. And if you have any questions, you can send it through the email through Canvas. And that's also where you'll take your quizzes. Now, since we're in these Corona times, there's going to be some adjustments, like how I post the videos and flexibility in due dates. And we'll talk about both of those, starting with the recordings, the live lecture. So, like, the live lecture is at our designated time, and that's great, right? I hope you can make it. But I understand things happen, and maybe you can't. I get it. The thing is we need to, so I post these videos for you as fast as I can, but no, there's a lot that goes into these recordings. And so it's not just like, I don't record with the live lecture, because I feel like that's really hard to watch. So I record it later, and hopefully you appreciate my effort, but in that effort, it comes at a cost of its unpredictable times that it comes out. So don't rely on it, because the recordings coming out the same time after every class. Okay, it will be like each recording will happen before the next class, but yeah. And so also another thing to think about with these recordings is that sometimes on days I will not. I'll give group work time, and I can't record those. So it's still important that you try to come to all the live lectures that you can. But for information that you missed, whether you were paying attention and you want to revisit it, or something happens and you were unable to come to class that day, I get it. That's what these recorded lectures are for. Okay. Now, the thing is that since I'm recording these for every single lecture, that's a lot of lectures, right? And so I'm not going to make an announcement for every lecture that I record and post. If you want to get notified for when that happens, which I would totally understand, because it comes at unpredictable time, it's inconsistent times because of the nature of working on these. You can subscribe and ring the bell so that you get notified for when they become available. Okay, I'm not trying to live out my YouTuber fantasies. I'm just saying this is a good way to get notified for when this is available. Office hours, we'll be posting office hours very soon, and it will be both walk-ins and times that you can schedule. Okay, and of course, if those times don't work, you can send an email and we'll try to work something out. Policies. First one is attendance. So as I was talking before about with the recordings, that about we want you to come to the live lectures as much as you can, but things happen and we get it. So not attending the live lectures is not going to directly affect your grade. Directly. Like if that is the only time that your group meets and you don't participate with your group at all for the group project, it's going to hurt your grade. If you don't get any of the information from the class and you don't watch the recordings, it's going to hurt your grade. I talk about things that are, well, I'll eventually record these, but the things that I record about aren't all in the textbook, and just like, and there's going to be some things in the textbook that I don't talk about that will be in the quiz. So make sure you're also getting a bunch of those things too. But it's also good because you interact with the material, and after all the exit slips, there's a fun question that I asked that I will include in the next class after. So, I don't know, I think it's kind of fun. Anyways, late policy. So really, there's no late policies for anything except well, let me go over the things that don't have late policies. Exit slips, Zybooks, and quizzes. Exit slips because they don't count towards your grade, and it's really just to measure the things from the live lecture. Okay? The Zybooks, there's no late policy because in order for us to get these grades, what we have to do is we have to go to Zybooks and we have to say, at this date, for these sections, what is the percentage complete of the class? Right? And it gives us a spreadsheet and it tells us the percentage complete. So in order to do a late policy, and there's 150 of you in this class, so it's a lot, we would have to download a bunch of times. And it's asking a lot of the teaching team for a small part of your grade. So because of that, there's no late policy for it. Quizzes, there's no late policy either because you get about 24 hours to take that quiz. So there should be enough time for you to do it. Now, since we are, like I said, with the COVID times, I've added a COVID modifier, and this is all in the syllabus. But anyways, if something happens, you have a week to tell me that something has happened, and we will work something out. However, if it's past a week, it's going to be more unlikely that we're going to be able to work something out. And it's out of fairness to the teaching team, the other students, everybody. Okay? But I'm giving everybody a week if they need it for, like, if they get hit with the coronavirus, whether directly or indirectly, if they get sick with something else, it's like that sort of thing. This is to be a contingency plan for when things just happen. It's not just to, like, you slept in through the time you meant to take the quiz. It's not really meant for that. It's meant for if you're sick, if you went to like there was a funeral blocking something, or I don't know. There's lots of different things that it's intended to be flexible for, not for forgetting. Okay. Academic integrity. So the academic integrity is incredibly important to me because fairness for students is incredibly important. I want people to, like, the grades that the people get from the class, I want it to be because it's something that they earned, right? And so if academic integrity is not enforced, then the students that earn their grades, their grades are kind of cheapened because there's people that are able to get the same grade without working as much or knowing the material as well. So it's saying something different about the grade. So to kind of preserve those students' efforts, academic integrity must be enforced. So please don't cross this line, and I won't have to enforce it. I'm not trying to scare you. I just want to be upfront and clear about it. And to help you with this, I have 2 different academic integrity things for you to do, and it's in the first week module, and we'll talk a little bit more about this at the end of this video. Other policies, disability services. If you have special needs, I really want to help you out. Just make sure you talk to student services, and they will give you forms and stuff like that and things to give me, and we'll work stuff out that way. That's the only way that I can really help people out with those. It's what I'm allowed to do. Also, if you need counseling and psychological services, because these are weird times. I'm not going to say unprecedented times because it's becoming a cliche, I think. But anyways, these are hard times for a lot of people for a lot of different reasons, and the counseling and psychological services could maybe help with that. And then education equality. I want everybody to feel welcome and valued in the school. And so if you need these sort of services, they're available on the syllabus for you to find the links to. Okay. Now what we're going to do is talk about a brief history on computing, as promised. So first, we're going to talk about Joseph Marie Jacquard. So what this guy did was he didn't really come up with a computer. He didn't come up with a computer. He came up with a loom. And the cool thing about this loom is that it would do different weavings depending upon punch cards that would be used. Now the punch cards, you could see right here. So this was like a string of punch cards that would go in, and the machine would read the punch card and say, okay, I need to do the weaving this way. Okay, and so it was able to get different patterns from the fabric. And that was really cool. And the person that also thought that was cool was Charles Babbage. Now, before we get into how he thought that was cool, let's talk about this device right here. This device right here, is a difference engine, or actually part of a difference engine, the first one. So, taking a step back, Charles Babbage had these really great ideas, and he never really completed any of them. Okay, and so, what this does is this calculates some polynomial calculations. We don't get into like what it was that he was calculating, but it was to do specific calculations, and you enter in by selecting the different dials on the columns, and then you crank at the top. And it comes out with a calculation. So it's a mechanical calculator, and it was really cool. And like, it blew people's minds away at different parties because, I mean, I don't know. I think that'd be really cool right now, but it was especially cool really back then. He later used what he knew from that to come up with a difference engine too, and this was never built in his lifetime, but it was eventually built. Now, if you can see, this thing is 11 feet long. It's really loud, and instead of like that crank on top, it's a crank on the side, and I believe it also printed results right here. So it was really, really cool. But this isn't his only contribution towards computing, because it was worked on calculating. And one of the things that he also worked on calculating was coming up with this analytical engine, is what he called. And with the analytical engine, what this could do is it was essentially a computer that he designed that was mechanical. And one of the cool things, like I said before with the punch cards, is that he used punch cards to program this. So this was a programmable mechanical computer. Like, this isn't steampunk. This was a real design that he came up with. Like, some of the cool things that it could do was conditional logic. So loops and branches and that sort of thing. It had memory. It had a CPU. The CPU was called a mill. And like I said, it used punch cards, so it was programmable, which is crazy. So part of the design was this, and it's to kind of get, like, these are the different cylinders. So this is looking down at it. And to get a better idea as to kind of what this kind of looked like, this artist did this representation of it. So again, this never was actually built. This was just a design, and he would share some of his designs, and he would actually work with getting help with translation with this lady right here. And her name is Ada Lovelace. And Ada Lovelace is kind of credited for being the first programmer. And one of the things that's really cool about this, as I emphasized before, is this machine was never built, but yet she was able to, like, see the potential in it and was able to write a program for it. And so what this program does is come up with Bernoulli numbers. What's the significance of Bernoulli numbers? It was something fun at the time. See, back then, math was, I mean, it had some applications that people could use for different things, but a lot of the development of math was because it was neat. It was kind of thought of more as like puzzles and sort of things like that. So they'd say Bernoulli numbers, really cool. And so then she said, look, I can use this this mechanical device to come up with Bernoulli numbers. Isn't this cool? And it was. And so the thing is like, so you know how we said the programming was through the punch cards, so she didn't really make the punch cards. She said if you had the punch cards and you had the machine, you could apply this information to it and you would have yourself a program. So this is the program that she kind of came up with, and it was later found out that it would have totally worked, which is interesting because she did this all by hand. There was no IDE, there was no, this was just her figuring it out, which is really, really cool. The next guy that we're going to talk about is Herman Hollerith. And so what he did was he invented a machine that kind of looked like this, which was a tabulating machine which used electricity and mechanics to summarize punch cards. Okay? And so what's really cool about this is that, I think it illustrates best with the census. So in 1890, not too long after it was invented, this device was used for the census. Right, the census that was taken. So they took the census on the punch cards and they used the machine. And what it did was, so taking a step back, so doing a census and getting the information from the census, you're getting individual information from everybody in at least the citizens in the U.S., right? So there's a lot of people. There's more now, but there's a lot of people in the U.S. And imagine having to do that all by hand. It would take forever. In fact, it took, well, not forever, but it would take years, and it did. And the really cool thing about this machine is that it was able to reduce the amount of times that it took for doing the tabulation. So just like gathering that information, it took it 2 years faster than it would have. However, they were doing it before. So it really improved. It was a massive improvement for how we handle data. But anyways, Herman Hollerith, to get also further perspective, what he eventually did was he joined forces with other companies, which later became IBM, okay, which is still around today. The next guy is Alan Turing, this guy up here. And so what Alan Turing has done, he's played a huge contribution to both computer science and mathematics. In fact, he's considered by most to be the father of computer science. So different things that he did was he cracked the Enigma, which was this really cool encrypting device that was used by the Germans during World War II. He also came up with the Turing test, which was a kind of a thought process for better kind of understanding computing and things like that. And it's kind of been later applied to the artificial intelligence. And then later, or not later, but like he also came up with the Turing machine, which helps us understand computing and like what we want computing, well, not necessarily want, but what computing can do. Like what does that look like? And so a lot of really cool advancements in computations come from him. Another thing that was big in history was the ENIAC. So the ENIAC was one of the first generation's computers, general purpose computers, right? It was the first digital computer. And it used vacuum tubes and manual switches to process data. It was huge. So just to get an idea, this thing weighed 30 tons, is about 1,800 square feet, and it had 18,000 vacuum tubes. So a vacuum tube is essentially like a fancy light bulb that would help it with the computations. And so one of the things that those, like light bulbs, it would make the room really hot. So doing these computations were, I mean, like your smartphone is going to be smarter than these devices were. But when they ran, it got really, really hot. A lot of it was because of these vacuum tubes. Also, these vacuum tubes were not as durable as the transistors that are in your phone, so they would need to be replaced. So it was not a very comfortable experience doing calculations with it because they'd have to constantly replace bulbs. It would get hot, and so people said there's got to be a better way, and eventually there were. And that's where the next step from there was the transistors. Another contributor to computer history was Grace Hopper. She was, I think her biggest contribution is, I'll say, is developing the compiler. And so before, when people wanted to do computing, they had to basically think in ones and zeros. And when it wasn't ones and zeros, it was substitutions for those ones and zeros. And so it was like specifically telling what the computer to do. And so what the compiler does was able to do, like it was able to be a better connection between the programmer and the computer. It kind of made the computing more approachable, and it more efficient too, because somebody could say, print this line, and that printing line, though it's very simple for the person, it could be translated into something a little bit more advanced for the computer to do. So in a sense, one line of code could represent a bunch of actions that the computer does at one time. So that's where the efficiency comes in. And so she also worked on the UNIVAC and the Mark I and Mark II. And in fact, in those projects, she was part of the team that coined the term bug, because there was a literal bug that had that prevented the program from working as it should. And so that's kind of where that term comes from. So anyways, biggest contribution, coming up with the compiler, and it came into influencing COBOL, which is maybe not as popular as it was at one time, but it's kind of still around. It's been kind of growing. Next thing is Moore's Law. So what Moore did, Gordon Moore, was co-founder of Intel, and mid to late 60s, he said, hey, you know what? We're putting, so we were talking about transistors, and he said he noticed that there was the amount of them we're having each 2 years for the chips. And we'll get into more of chips later, but I wanted to at least get into Moore's Law. And so the idea is like for CPUs and things like that, there's half as many, the switches take up half as much room as they did before. So essentially another way to think about it is that they're able to use twice as many on the same surface each 2 years, which is a big advancement. And another thing that's really kind of interesting as to like where we are now is that it's really pushing the boundaries of the materials used to make these. And so we're having some, so as we're coming up with faster processors, meaning more transistors on these chips, there's different material requirements when they're getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and it's an interesting development in computing. But the thing that I want to really emphasize is that Moore's Law is that shrinking of the transistor sizes. All right, so academic integrity. So I have this page it's available to you, and it's going to have a link. And in this link, let's see, I believe it is academic integrity training. That's going to give you information that's going to help you for one of the quizzes that I give you. I think it's this one right here. But anyways, so what I want you to do for class will not exit slip, because this isn't a live lecture, this is recording, but make sure you sign up for zyBooks. Make sure you read 1.1 to 1.5 before Monday. Make sure you take the academic integrity quiz and the academic integrity acknowledgement. You can keep taking those until you get a good score. Okay? And then also complete the discussion, and just so you know, the most recent score is the one that's kept. Okay. Complete the discussion, introduce yourself. That will be due later, but you can start doing that now. Okay. And that's all I have for you. See y'all later. Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please press the like button. It lets me know I'm doing something right. If you have any questions about any of the content, please send an email through Canvas to both me and the rest of the teaching team, and we will get back to you as soon as possible. Do not send it through normal email. You will not get as fast response. If you have any suggestions for how I can make these videos better, please leave in the comments below. Don't forget to roundhouse kick the subscribe button and ring the bell to get notified for when I post the next video. Anyway, I think that's good for now, and I will see you all next class.